you have this adverse event. I've heard this before, and I don't know really where the lines are drawn on this, but somebody told me you should keep your own journal afterwards of what happened. I guess there's two questions. One is it something that you should do? And two, is that journal legally protected? Or how can you legally protect the journal that you wrote down? Where you might just go back and you're writing down things that you might not have put in the chart, but things you remember later on as you're trying to go off to sleep and you can't sleep because you're just thinking about this case.
So I would say, yes, you can take some additional notes, and no, it should not be in the form of a personal journal. You do not want to create a sort of secondary record or a duplicate record, something like that, that you have at home, right? Or in your office or someplace, because that will become discoverable, by which I mean, if a lawsuit is filed, the plaintiff's attorney will have the legal right to subpoena your journal. So you don't want to do that. Now, there certainly are lots of things that happen in the course of care that don't get captured in the record, such as those things you wish you'd captured before an event occurs, conversations you had, maybe behavior of the plaintiff's family or tones of voice, right? Things that just don't end up in a medical record, but that you wish you'd captured and you don't want to forget. The way I would recommend that you capture these is to write a letter, and I want you to put right up at the top, "To my attorney," and label it privileged attorney-client communication. And then you're going to write those details in, fairly concise manner as best you can. Capture everything that is not clearly captured in the medical record in that letter. You don't have an attorney yet, right? You have not been sued. But in the event that you are, and you are assigned an attorney, that letter will be privileged attorney-client communications, and it will not be open to discovery or subpoena. Then what I want you to do with that letter is to either give it to your medical malpractice insurance carrier. There's going to be like a claims manager there, and you're going to report, hey, there was this adverse event, and I want you to be aware that Mr. Jones on thus and so date, had an arrest in the OR, whatever it is, and they're going to have the medical record. They will hang on to that letter as well, and they will keep it safe. Now, if you don't have direct access to a claims manager, let's say you're in the context of a large health system that sort of self-insures, which some do, so you're not affiliated, let's say, with the doctor's company or someplace where you're going to send off this letter, then you're going to reach out to legal or risk management at the institution where you are an employee and inquire about who they want you to give this letter to. And they will tell you. You can give it to the risk manager, or you bring it over here to this lawyer, and you let them put it into a file, because you're going to tell them this event happened if they haven't heard it already from, the surgeon or somebody, right? You're going to give them the details, and you're going to give them this letter. I myself got this advice a couple of years before an adverse event occurred in my clinical practice. And within a day or two of the event, I did exactly that. I wrote a letter. I provided it to the appropriate person at the large physician group that I was a part of at the time. And when I met my own lawyer about 13 months later, he had already read the letter. So I was impressed. He not only had already read that letter, he'd already begun to formulate an opinion on the defensibility of the case. He'd seen the medical record, he'd seen my letter, and he was already carrying the ball, so to speak. So that's what I would advise you to do. That's a safe way for you to document those other things. If you need to write your feelings, writing out feelings can help people to process traumatic experiences. And the use of a journal for that purpose is absolutely fine, but you need to be very certain that, there's no obvious information that would associate your journal entries with a particular patient or event. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I think I probably wouldn't even date the journal entry. I would keep any clinical or patient related detail just absolutely out of there, and just feel free to write about, that it hurts that we care so much for our patients, and sometimes bad things happen to us. And for you as anesthesiologists, sometimes right before your eyes, bad things happen, and that's very, very hard.